My husband is still in love with his high school friend. So to start off, my husband Steve, 29 male, and I, 28 female, have been together for about 9 years, 7 of which are as husband and wife. We met in university, and so I know little to nothing about his life back when he was in high school. We've had a smooth relationship with a few fights, and we have no kids, but intend to have a child soon. By the way, this comes from username, and if you want to submit your own story, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. So a little more than a week ago, when I came home from work, the moment when I stepped into my house, I saw Steve and this woman chatting in the living room. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I only wished that he would have informed me that there would be a guest at the house. He introduced me to her, of whom I am going to call Eve, as she was an old friend back in high school, and it's been about a decade since they've last seen each other. I sat down next to my husband to join in on the conversation, but it seemed as though the talking would only be between Steve and Eve. Now I get it, they're old buddies from high school. You're not a part of it, so give them a break. But it seemed as though Steve was purposefully ignoring me because Eve did try to include me in the conversation, asking how long Steve and I had been together and such, but he wouldn't even assist in answering such types of questions. After they went back to a one-on-one conversation, I just went on with my business around the house. Eve stayed for about an hour more before she had left and gone home. I then asked Steve a bit more about Eve. I didn't mean to come off as terribly nosy, but I asked about how they met, or so, what she's like. I didn't get much of a response other than, it's just old history, or Eve's pretty cool. The only thing I really knew about her was her name, that they reunited on Facebook, and she's an old friend of my husband's. After that day, Steve went out to lunch with Eve. He had notified me, so I wasn't worried, but then he would go bowling with Eve, to the movies with Eve, even shopping with Eve. And mind you, I almost always do the shopping while my husband likes to stay at home. He doesn't like shopping with wifey, but he likes it with Eve, without even telling me that he was going with Eve unless I asked. A couple nights back, I finally told him that I just find it a bit uncomfortable that he was spending so much time with Eve, and that I hoped maybe we could spend some more time together, but in the end, he only told me that I was overreacting. Ever since Eve showed up, Steve and I had only had spicy sleep once, and that scares me the most because we usually have spicy sleep about every other night. I'm scared that he's really is having an affair with Eve because he's been so vague with me when it comes to her. Always going out with her and just being so distant from me and everything he's been doing. I know the passcode to his phone, and I'm well aware I could look through his phone when he's not looking, but that's a line that I just do not want to cross. I love Steve, and I thought I trusted him, but with all of his evidence piling up, I'm beginning to just question him. Please don't get the idea that Eve is a no-good homewrecker either. I barely know her myself. I did find her Facebook profile, and I shamefully went through her profile and had found out that she's newly engaged. I thought about messaging her myself, but I wouldn't even know what to say. How should I handle this? Am I just being paranoid? And there is an update. So last night, when Steve and I sat down for dinner, we quietly, across the table from each other, I had decided that I would talk to him about how his behavior has been unacceptable lately and how he has been spending too much time with Eve, which in turn was neglecting me. I started the conversation by asking how his day went, how work was, and then gradually led up to asking if I could see his phone. He asked why, and I replied that I just wanted to see it. He said no. I asked him why I couldn't see it, and he said, since he doesn't look through my phone, then why do I need to look through his? I had tried to urge him to let me see it, but he said that his final answer was no. I then said that we needed to talk about Eve. At this point, he just groaned and asked why I can't just drop the topic with Eve and that I was being nosy. I got really mad and told him to shut up and just listen to me. At that point, I let it all out. I had told him that he was prioritizing Eve first and me after, and that I didn't understand why I couldn't just go out with him whenever he and Eve would hang out together, that he's been so vague when it came to anything about Eve, and that I shouldn't have to ask to know that he went out to hang out with Eve. I just feel left out as his wife and his best friend. He shouldn't feel as though he has to keep any of his own history from me, but after I was done with my own rant, I waited for his response. I expected some sort of explanation, some sort of apology, or heck, at least some questions to at least find some sort of common ground on how I felt. He said nothing of the sort. Instead, he said I was being ridiculous and that I'm antagonizing him for just catching up with an old friend. I told him that he was acting so shady, how I would have to dig to find the whole truth, and how it seemed as though he was so much more invested in Eve than he was with me. He was then offended by the fact that I called him shady and had yelled back at me at how I had so little trust in my faithful husband after all of these years of marriage. That statement alone just ticked me off because it led me to pointing out all of his sketchy behavior. And when I asked him why he wouldn't invite me to an outing with Eve, nonetheless tell me about her, he just said that he's allowed to have his own friends without me interfering. which is BS because I don't usually go out with him when it's his guys' night out unless he invites me to come. We get into a full-blown argument, which led to me going to the bedroom and staying there for the rest of the night. When we woke up this morning, neither of us was in a mood to speak to each other, and I just headed off to work. During lunch, I was on Facebook and went on Eve's Facebook and sent her a friend request. I then messaged her if we could have lunch tomorrow. She did reply a bit later, and I asked her to please not tell Steve about this. She replied, I guess. I really hope she does not tell Steve, but if she does, I wouldn't be surprised, but I have no clue what to do. We will be having lunch tomorrow, and I'm going to ask her about her relationship with Steve, but I have no idea how I'm going to execute it. I will try to update as soon as possible, and we have said update. So I sat at our agreed meeting place, and we agreed to meet at 12:30. I have the day off today, so I wasn't bound to a schedule and showed up about 10 minutes early. I waited and she arrived a little late, but I'm glad she showed up at all. So we greet each other, and she says it's nice to finally get the chance to know me and to assure me that she did not tell Steve. Her assurance was nice, but I was well aware that anything she said could be completely false. We talked, and she does talk about her fiance and showed me a ring and such. I asked how they were doing, and she said it's been great, and how he proposed to her before he went on a business trip and is currently still gone. And yes, I realized that what she said is a huge red flag. So she then asked me how Steve and I were doing. I told her that it wasn't going great, and she seemed pretty surprised by my answer. Eve had asked what was wrong. I didn't give her much detail other than the fact that Steve seemed to be distancing himself from me. She then asked if this has been going on for long, and I did not tell her that it started when she appeared. Instead, I just said it started pretty recently. At this point, she is flustered. I mean, she is covering her face by saying things like, oh no, and I'm just scared of what's going on. So I ask her what's wrong, and she says she thinks she might be part of the reason why he's being distant. I asked her why she thought that she was a part of the cause, and she said that it might sound ridiculous, but she thinks that Steve might still be hung up on her from high school. She apologized for saying it and asked me to please believe her because she was being completely honest. I asked if they had dated back in high school, and she told me that they did not. It was that Steve was completely infatuated with her for all 4 years of high school, and promised me that the only reason why she even agreed to meet him again was because she thought that he was over her, especially since Steve got married to me. Opie says, I calmed her down and assured her I believed her, and I asked her what they were like in high school. Her story matched up with the conclusion she gave me, and throughout she kept apologizing to me. She told me that she has never reciprocated to Steve's feelings. I brought up the fact that Steve wouldn't ever invite me to the hangouts with the both of them, and she said that Steve just told her I just didn't want to go, or I was busy. Heck, she even showed me texts as proof of him passing me off as antisocial. Eve asked me what I was going to do, and I just told her that I was going to talk to Steve. That's all I can really do at this point. We made some other small talk and then thanked each other for the lunch. So what I've been able to conclude so far is, even if Eve and Steve were in cahoots with each other, even if Eve was trying to lie her way out of being in a physical affair with Steve, even if all her remorse, story, and apologies were a great big pile of bull, it just seems so blatant to me that he is having an emotional affair, which is enough for me. He's a lying sack of crap that purposely kept Eve and I separated by telling her I had no interest in getting to know her. I'm his rebound. It just seems as though I've always been his rebound now. She said that Steve and her separated after high school and lost contact, and then that's where I see myself coming into the story. Eve was very nice and polite throughout the entire meal, but I will most likely let us go our separate ways after this. I do not regret meeting her for lunch whatsoever because I came for closure and I got something. I am also going to consult my lawyer and see what I can do with this information. I do not see this marriage working out, especially if he's this quick to abandon me for an old flame, and have already spent so many years of my life on this marriage. My sister is well aware of what was going on, and I am welcome to stay with her, and I do intend to. When Steve comes home, he will get an earful, and I'll let him give his own side of the story. But until then, I will prepare myself. So to start off, I've talked with my lawyer, who is also my cousin, and she gave me advice from both a legal perspective and her own personal perspective. To sum it up, she said that I should let our issues settle down for a while before I even consider divorce, specifically until it is to the point of a separation with no progress, that I should keep my act in line. She also gave me her recommendations of where to attend marriage counseling. My sister says that I'm welcome to stay at her home, but in the meantime, I have put it on hold. I do realize that I was taking a bit too far with the jump to divorce, especially especially since I haven't spoken to Steve yet. I also took some time to calm down before I did this update. Now, on to what happened yesterday when Steve came home. When he had just arrived in the house, I let him get settled down before I would discuss with him about Eve, him, and us. Once he was on the couch in the living room, I sat down and asked if we could talk, and I got no reply back, so I went on with our discussion. First off, I apologized for having lost my temper on him on Monday. I then brought up the fact that I had spoken with Eve, of which he had asked me. That definitely got his attention, and he asked me to repeat what I just said, and then he asked me, why the F would you do that? I told him that since he would not tell me what was going on, I had went to Eve myself to get to know her and talk about it. I then told him that I needed to discuss about what Eve told me, and then proceeded to tell Steve about the whole high school infatuation and how we both suspect that he still might be hung up on her. I asked him if what she said was true. Steve then cleared up to me that it's not an infatuation, but that he's actually in love with Eve. So next, I asked him how he felt about me, and he said that he does indeed love me, but it's different. I brought up the fact that she was already engaged, and he got a bit angry and told me that, I already know that. He already knows, but that doesn't mean he can just get over Eve. I then asked him if they have ever done anything together, which I pleaded to him to be absolutely honest with, and he said that no, they haven't done anything because Eve isn't like that. Opie says, I was about to ask if he would really have an affair with her if she welcomed it, but I really don't want to hear his answers. I brought up the fact that he lied to the both of us and asked why he did it, and he said he guessed that he just didn't want me to be there. He apologized to me, but I didn't really know how to take it, and still don't. And also, why didn't he tell me earlier? He told me that I might as well know now since the cat's out of the bag. I proposed that we go to marriage counseling so we could possibly fix this. I do love Steve, and it absolutely hurts right now, but I told him that we could salvage what we still have together, and he could possibly get over Eve. He said that he wasn't going to get over Eve no matter how hard I try. I asked if he still wanted to be married to me, and he said, of course. I told him I would leave him to the rest of the week to think it over if he wants to go to marriage counseling or not, and he said he would think it over. We are now speaking to each other again, but are not intimate, understandably. I won't hound him for an answer. Instead, I'll let him simmer on this until the end of the week. If he refuses to attend counseling, then I suppose he just doesn't want to work on our marriage anymore.